Ooh, that looks tasty. A group of heroes has been commissioned by the human nations to stop an imminent offensive by the combined army. Embarked in the Defiance, the heroes of the human sphere must fight against an alien invader in a suicide mission with the sole objective of saving humanity. Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another Kickstarter preview. And I call it a Kickstarter preview. The Kickstarter is already over, but it is going to be opening up for late pledges coming up in the next few weeks. And today we are talking about Infinity Defiance by Corvus Belli, and set in their very popular Infinity universe. And so what this is a dungeon crawl set in the future. So I guess it's a space crawler, really. And you are a group of human heroes sent out to stop the alien invasion from other galaxies or dimensions. I'm not fully familiar with the Infinity mythos, but if you are, I'm sure you can correct me on that. And before I go any further, please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes, that is where you will find the corrections. And if you are someone that is not at all interested in how this game plays and just want to skip ahead to my final thoughts, you're going to want to jump ahead to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us who are still here, let's talk a little bit about what I have set up in front of me. Now, I will preface this by saying that this is not a full setup. What I have set up for you is the board layout for the demo mission that they've been doing at conventions and the like. I've not put everything out because I don't want to give away too many spoilers of what's supposed to be out there and what you would see if you get a chance to play this. And I will also say I've only put out 2 heroes. I've chosen to put out Jazz, the hacker, and I have chosen to put out Uma, the gunslinger. The base game will also come with 2 more heroes, being Kang Jo, and hopefully I didn't say that too horribly and offend anybody, and Caden as well, in addition to any heroes that were unlocked as stretch goals or that you purchase as an add-on, so on and so forth. And when you play, you actually do need to use 4 heroes. But again, for me to illustrate how the game works, this is going to be plenty. So here is what we are looking at in front of us. I have my 2 heroes just kind of set out here, and my heroes, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see what we have, are geared up like they would be in any dungeon crawl. So we can see what Jazz has here. Jazz has her hacking device, which she's wearing as a helmet. She has her stun pistol, and these here are the different things her hacking device can do. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And this is Billy, her little robot critter that she can send out to assist as well. And then she has this auto medkit, which is a way for her to heal if she goes down. And then for Uma we have an accuracy helmet, which gives her more dice when she attacks, some medium armor, and 2 pistols, and she also does have a auto medkit as well. Then all the way up here we have our round marker, which will matter in some scenarios, not in others. For anyone who's played a dungeon crawl, you know sometimes you have a time limit. And it has this alert level. As you play through the game, this level will go up. As the level goes up, it modifies what the enemies do, how they react, what they can do, and most importantly, if they get all the way down to the maximum alert level, what will happen is the villains will turn over and they get significantly harder to fight and kill. Other things that we have out in front of us. Clearly we have the minis. We have a couple of NPCs you can interact with. There's I won't tell you who it is. There's one person right here, and there's another NPC right there that are specifically tied to the scenario that you are on. This is a supply crate. You'll see it has the number 3 on there. That means that it has 3 pieces of equipment in it. If you go to that, you interact with it, you get to draw some gear. I have the AI cards for the enemies right here. I'll explain that a little bit later. I have the stat cards of the 3 enemies that I have out. Right now, out there I have a Cadmus, I have a Leader, and I have a Spec Ops. Then I have these 2 things here are magnetic seals, again, something that are specific to the scenario, as are these representing computer consoles as well, and then a big old sealed door. And so that is what you see on the board in front of you. Now, I mentioned these consoles. Over here, there's also the console inputs. As you're trying to hack a console, that is where you put the symbols and things that you have achieved so far. That is what you see in front of you. So let's just talk about very quickly how the game works. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to build your initiative deck. And so you take one of the initiative cards from each of the enemies out there. You'll see small little initiative cards, and then you shuffle them up. Now, I know what you are thinking. You're thinking, Hungry, you did not put your hero initiative cards in there. You're right, I didn't, because those do not exist. I'll put those down right here. And then off to the side, I have the initiative cards and stat cards for the 2 enemies that are not on the board right now. There's a hacker and this Guilo, who is a boss of sorts. And so what happens on your turn is you will always start with your heroes. You pick 1 hero to go, and then you draw an enemy AI card, then your other hero goes, and you draw an enemy AI card. After all the heroes have gone, all the enemies have gone, then there is the distributing of new AI cards, and perhaps the adding of enemies into the initiative, or reshuffling the initiative, so on and so forth. Your heroes, what can they do? Because this is what we care about. You get to do 2 actions on your turn. You can move, in which case it's very simple. You are able to move up to your foot distance. This is your health, by the way. That is your defense if someone tries to hack you. And that is the max amount of aggro that you can have. I'll explain that very shortly. So you can move, you can attack, you can interact with something on the board, which might be like these consoles here, or something like that. And you can hack if you have the ability to do hacking. For example, Jasmine here has her hacking device, which comes with different abilities to it. Or you can do an equip action, meaning you can take something out of your backpack, rearm it, change things around, like any other dungeon crawler. You know how that works. Let's talk about what we actually really care about. First, that is attacking. I'm going to start with Uma here. And Uma has twin pistols, and you'll see that her pistols have a range of 1 through 4, and these are the 2 dice that they get, and these are their switches. I'll talk about switches in a minute. So she gets on her attack these 2 dice. Because she has the saturation attack when she's armed with 2 pistols, she gets this die as well. So these are what she's going to be rolling on her attack. Then we have to make sure she's in range. And right now she's in range 1, 2, 3, 4. And so these are the dice she will roll to attack. Now she's attacking this Cadmus here. So now I have to go and I have to look and see what is the Cadmus's defense. And that is right here. 1 black die is the Cadmus's defense. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and roll all of them together. Sometimes you can't do that because the colors don't work out that way. And what I'm looking for are stars. Stars are points of damage. Just straight up, do that, get damage. These other symbols do other things. The bad guy is looking for a shield. 1 shield negates 1 star. So here we go, I roll, and no shield for the bad guy. And luckily for me, I got 3 stars, 1 exclamation, and 2 shields. So let's talk about how I could use those things. So if you recall, when we looked here, at the bottom, there were these symbols. So if I had rolled 2 exclamations, I could use those to add a star to my attack. Different items, different weapons use different things. Some of them actually do use the shields that you can turn in, and everything is different. And so before I were to do damage, I would have to choose to turn those in. So we could say that maybe, there we go, maybe I rolled that. So that's 1, 2, 3. And then I could turn in these 2 exclamations, and now that is 4 points of damage that I did with that roll. That's quite a good roll. And then I would look at my card here, and I would see that Cadmus has 4 health, so I just put it down with one shot. I would have killed it, it would go away. Now, by killing it, I have earned myself some aggro. And I would take one of these tokens, and I would put it on her board. She can have a max of 5 aggro. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And because I killed something, I would add one of these reinforcement tokens to the reinforcement area over there. Now, there are various ways you can get them. A lot of them come from the scenario. If you don't do anything, you might get some, but I'm not going to go into too great a depth about how that happens. The other important way is if you build up enough aggro, let's say I have earned myself a total of 7 aggro. Well, that's 2 over the maximum that I can have, so I have to discard aggro down to what my limit is, which is 5. And then for every one I had to discard, I would add 1 more reinforcement token to the reinforcement pool. And again, I will explain how reinforcements work. And so that's how the combat works. Now, the other thing that I need to add into here is sometimes you're fighting something that has dice that aren't just black as their defense. They might also say have a blue die. And let's say they rolled this. So now they're blocking 2 of my 4, so now I'm only doing 2 damage, but they're also doing 1 damage back to me because they rolled a star also. Luckily for me, I have a shield and I can block that. This is exactly the same system as is used in Aristeia, so if you're familiar with that game, you are familiar with how this works. I will also add that there are some abilities that when you use them, they're not an opposed roll. What I just did is call it an opposed roll because the bad guy gets to roll 2, but just to activate your ability, you'll just be looking for a star. So that is how combat works. Very simple, pretty clean. Movement, clearly, you move hex to hex. You can always move through anybody. Nothing blocks your movement, though if you move through an enemy space, it is double movement to do that. So that is shooting. And here we have movement, and I could interact with that supply crate. And I could draw 3 pieces of loot and see what I got. I got some special ammunition, I got a grenade, and I got a med kit. And I could take what I wanted and put it down in my backpack up to what I'm able to carry. I'll just leave those there for now because it does not matter at this moment. Then the other thing that matters is there are some characters that have the ability to hack. And this is interesting. In many ways, this is kind of taking the place of magic. Now, some enemies are what are called hackable. If they are hackable, you can use a hacking ability on them. And enemies can also sometimes hack you if you are hackable. You might have power armor that's hackable or whatever. Jazz here is a character that can hack. So she has this hacking device that gives her the ability to do a orange and a yellow die. And her hacking device has these abilities. So if I'm trying to do damage, I could use this Skull Buster and add a yellow die to my hack, and I do even extra damage for each star that I roll. So let's just say I'm going to do that. So now my hacking roll has 2 yellow dice and 1 orange die, and then I would check my Cadmus here, and I see that the Cadmus has a blue die as their hacking defense. I apologize, that's not correct. The physical defense is this die right here, and the hacking defense is that one right there. I just made a mistake right now. It doesn't matter in the long run, just know that when I was rolling against the gunshots, I should have been rolling a blue die. Against the hacking die, I'm simply rolling the black one. In any event, it does not particularly matter at this point. But I could choose to hack instead. And so I can hack this enemy, and now I'm getting to roll all these dice. And in this case, I would be doing 4 damage with that Skull Buster. And we'll see how their defense goes. Nothing, so I would have killed it. But at the same time, I might be using something else. Maybe I'm trying to do a lockpick. So if I'm working on a console, I get that other die. Maybe I'm trying to give aid, and you can see if I use that, it gives me a switch. So these are called switches. So you get the idea. And so that's how combat works on your side. The last thing that I need to show you is how these consoles work, because you will run across consoles quite often. So I'm going to pop up here, and let's say I'm using this console to try to open this door over here, this locked door. It's one of the things that you have to do in this scenario. I'm going to use, so I'd used a move, and for my second action, I'm going to attempt to hack it. Now, if you recall, my hacking device has the lock-picking ability, so I get to roll all of these right here. And so I roll them. And the scenario will tell me what it is that I need to unlock. It'll give specific symbols. So let's say I needed a star, a shield, and 2 exclamations. Well, let's take a look. I got my star, I got my exclamations, but I didn't get a shield. So what I would do is I would take these and I put them on my console. We'll pretend this is console 4. I got my star and I got an exclamation, and that stays there. That's been inputted, so you don't have to do it all in one round. So it allows for more challenging hacks later on, and it would allow you to kind of do some work, someone else can finish it, and you get the idea of how that works as well. And then, as soon as it's done, the door would unlock and things would happen. And again, you know the difficulty of each hack based on the scenario book that goes with the story that's there. Now, the only other thing that you need to see is how do the enemies work. So at the beginning of the round, you would have given each one of these bad guys an AI card. Then after a hero goes, you would flip over and see who's going. Oh, well, the Cadmus there gets its chance to go. Well, clearly, both my heroes killed it, but it's right there for the moment. And we take a look. And you're going to do the blue side unless you've reached the maximum alert level. And so all of this here tells you what it is you're going to try to do. So this is you are going to find a target of the most wounded hero. And when you find target, they move to their maximum range, which in this case is 8. And no one's wounded right now, so I'll just toss 3 wounds on Jazz there. And so this character would move within 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's going to back up to get the range, and then is going to do the next one down, which is it's going to fire. And this usually would mean it's going to fire at the target with the least aggro. There's a different symbol for most aggro. But in any event, so it moves. In this case, the least aggro is also Jazz, and it will fire at Jazz. And firing works exactly the same as it works for the heroes. And so you take a look. Here, I have my combi rifle, which is a yellow and an orange, and it gets a free exclamation. And you'll see for 2 exclamations, I get to add another star. Then I would go to Jazz and see what her defense is. I look at her board. Her defense is a single blue die. And she does not have any armor. If I had any armor, I would get to add that as well. And so here we go. I would roll. And luckily for me, nothing happened. But just for kicks, we'll say I rolled that. So that means, whoops, there we go. I rolled that. That means that I would take 2 damage from those 2 stars, and then 1 more because if you recall, the combi rifle gives a free exclamation. I would use that switch, and I would be taking 3 damage. Very simple. And that is how the AI works. There's a whole bunch of different things they can do. They can find target, they can retreat, they can do multiple attacks, they can hack. And the reason there are so many different things here is because it's possible that you can't do some of these. Maybe you're not in range, you can't get to range, or you can't get away, and so you go to the next one, but you keep going down on these from the top to the bottom until you activate 2 of these specific AI instructions. And then you move on through till everyone has gone. Then at the end of the round, you enter the replacements and reinforcements phase. And so to do that, you take a look at the card. And this here is the replacements number. So if I want to get a reinforcement, then what I would do is I look. And if I have a token here, a reinforcement token, if you remember, I have 3 right now. I look, I remove one, and I would get to add a second Cadmus right there to reinforce him. Now, let's say that nobody has reinforcement tokens, or maybe I completely wiped out the Cadmus, or he wasn't on the board. These other two, the leader and the spec ops, they don't have a replacement stat. But I do have these two reinforcement tokens. So then I would go to the available villains, and I would see who comes in. And they'd be stacked up, so we'll just pretend that the Cadmus is on top. And down here, for 2 reinforcement tokens, 1, 2, I would bring in the whole unit, which is 2 of them right here. There's 2, that's how you track their damage. And then they would teleport in. And so that's how the reinforcements work. It just, at the end of every round, depending on what you have done, more enemies are going to teleport in. That might change due to the alert level as that goes up. It might change due to unlocking doors. Who knows what gives you the reinforcement tokens. But what always does give them to you is you damage an enemy, or you have more aggro than is your limit. And the very last thing that I know you care about is, what on earth are these? Well, these are used by the heroes every single time that you get knocked unconscious. And everyone starts with this auto med kit, so it kind of heals you back up, but there's ways you can heal someone who's unconscious. But you get knocked unconscious and you draw one of these. So for example, cannot activate switches. My hero has been injured, it would go here, and I can no longer use switches. That is devastating. And there's a whole range of what these could be. I mean, it might be you come to, but your wound is bleeding and you're going to suffer more damage. Who knows what it might be. So what do I like about this game? First of all, I really like how small it is. Now, yes, it does sprawl a little bit with all the cards and stuff. And then, you do have to have 4 different characters and the way their gear works. It is visually very cool, but it does take up a little bit of space. And so it does sprawl. You still do need a big table. But I like how small these tiles are. And yes, this is a demo mission setup, so they will get bigger, but I really do enjoy that. And I think it is quite easy to set things up, and so I'm a big fan of that. Mechanically, I've already said in my Aristeia review, I really like the head-to-head dice rolling. I really enjoy the switches system. It's a mini game within the game every time you're fighting something. Especially as you get to harder things that have more dice, it'll be much more of an interesting play how that goes. I also like this addition of this alert system here. It's thematic and it's also really fun because as you're going through, you're having to figure out, do I want to do this now? Because that is going to change my alert level, which is going to change how they're acting, and that's going to change all of my plans. And I think that is very, very clever. It's super easy to track, and it is a big bonus to the game. The same thing, I really like these consoles. I pretty much like this whole, everything on this board here. I just like the way it works. It's very cleverly done, very clean. I also like the simplicity of the play. There's not a lot of things that you can do. It's very obvious what you can do, and the game is not bogged down, at least with what I have seen in this prototype, with a lot of status effects and things that are going to change your numbers. You have your gear, and that is pretty much it. And currently, there are only 3 statuses. You can be stunned, you can be focused, or you can be knocked out. That's it. Now, I assume that there will be more later on, but it is fairly simple. There's just not that many status effects. And so, all of that is, while I like it, and that is unique, all that is pretty par for the course with a dungeon crawler. But what I think I like the most about this particular space crawler, I'll call it, is not the switches, though I really do like that, not the dice rolling, not the hacking, not the tiles, but it's this reinforcement system. I am sure there are other games that do it, but this is the first one that I have played where you have to pay attention to what you're doing, who is doing the most damage, who you're attacking, because those reinforcement tokens are going to go up, the aggro is going to go up. If your aggro is too high, more reinforcement tokens, and then you can have almost defeated a unit, and then suddenly, boom, it's full. More guys teleport in, and you are stuck with them. Or even worse, a whole unit that you weren't dealing with teleports in, and now you have to deal with it. It is awesome. It is so much fun. I adore that part of the game. And I also think that just from the demo, it seems like it's going to have a pretty comprehensive story. One that you're not going to have to read tons and tons and tons of stuff, but enough to keep you interested, to make you feel like you're out there doing something. And so I am very interested in where the story goes. Just from playing the demo, it makes me kind of want to go research Infinity a little bit to find out more about the world. And the last thing that I'm going to toss out as something that is a big plus is really the main marketing of this campaign is the minis, because there ain't no plastic in this game. Every single one of these minis are metal, and they all are really good looking miniatures. I mean, great detail. If you are a painter, you are going to be in heaven. And they all look really, really cool. They're very well done. I am in awe of these miniatures. Now let's talk about my quibbles. And there's just a few. The first one is it's expensive. You don't get metal minis without paying a premium for them. And so that is something to bear in mind. It is an expensive game. Now, my understanding is that you're also able to use a lot of these characters in Infinity as well, so you're a little double dipping there, but it is an expensive. And then my other quibble with the game is that while it plays quickly, and it feels like it plays quickly, and that's a good thing, it's not fast. And it's not fast because of this, switches system. Because every single time, and it's slower than it is in Aristeia, because in Aristeia, you're doing one side and your opponent's doing the other. But in this one, especially if you're playing solo, you got to figure out your dice. Great, I roll these, and you're figuring out the enemy's dice. Okay, now I'm rolling these, and then you have to look at what your switches are, what their switches are. You have to compare it to your card, then you have to compare it to their card, and you have to do the whole little mini game itself. It's not quite as enjoyable as it is in Aristeia. It's fun, and again, I've already said I like this switches dice play, but it does make the game take longer than you would expect. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's taking a long time, but then you finish the game and you're like, oh wow, that took longer than I expected. So there you have it, folks. That is Infinity Defiance. Again, just based off the demo, and I didn't show you how it works. I didn't spoil anything. I just showed you what all the options are. I think this is a very worthy entry into the dungeon crawler market. For my money, there's not that many space-themed ones out there, and there hasn't been one that I've really enjoyed since Galaxy Defenders, which I played all the way through, and I really did enjoy that. And I think this has a lot of good things to offer. It's worth looking at. One, if you like minis for the miniatures, they're fantastic. And if you enjoyed Aristeia and that combat system, and you enjoy dungeon crawlers, then absolutely check this out, because it's really taking something that's great and finding a new use for it. And if you're looking for a dungeon crawler that has something new in it, and I think this reinforcement system is new, at least new to me. So all of that said, if any of this sounds interesting, then you gotta check out the late pledge option. It's gonna cost you a pretty penny, but it really could be a fantastic game. I have very high hopes for this moving forward. So there you have it, folks. If you are familiar with this game and I made any mistakes in the explanation of everything that you can do, please let me know in the comments with a timestamp and I'll get that into the Klingon subtitles. And if you found this video useful, entertaining, whatever, please like, subscribe, and share. As always, folks, thank you so very much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.